Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, and this week Tabitha from the Heroes Initiative is back.
Hello.
Hello, and last time we kind of heard about her journey through the Heroes Initiative and conventions, and we kind of touched on favorite comics and favorite movies. So much like I did with Eric Hodson, we're going to talk about her favorite comic book movies and why they mean something to her and why they're her favorites, and just kind of go from there. And maybe that could give some people a new perspective on movies or clue them into a movie they haven't yet heard of. So we've talked about this pre-recorded, so I'm just gonna give the ball to her right now and let her discuss her first one.
All right. So, do you want me to go 5-1 with the honorable mentions, or 1-5 with honorable mentions? Which way do you want me to go?
Well, if we're gonna go 1 to 5, if we're gonna do them in an order, we'll start with 5 and go to 1. Then I guess.
Okay. So, my number 5 would be, of all things, the director's cut of Daredevil.
Now that
And I know a
I'm
lot of
glad you're
people
saying something
didn't.
about this, because I feel like this movie definitely does need some more love.
It does, and because the theatrical cut was just, they were trying too hard, and they took out what to me gave the movie some heart and really explored the character more of Matt Murdock. Like, they were trying to focus more on Daredevil. um, and I honestly, I've been a huge Ben Affleck fan most of my life, and people knock me for that all the time. But there's just something about that guy that I've always just found him to be a really good actor. I think the first thing I ever saw him in was Mallrats. I think that
Right.
was probably a lot of people's introduction to him. And in fact, he's gone on record, basically thanking Kevin Smith for giving him that role, because that was what kind of, you know, catapulted him and got him out there and got him some of the other roles. I also get a lot of flack again because it's Bruce. Or sorry, not, well, it is Bruce Willis and Ben Affleck is Armageddon. I know that's not a comic book movie, but I get busted for that one all the time. My husband makes fun of me, but there's just something about that cheesy movie. I really, really like it. But anyway, so going back to Daredevil. So basically, the reason why I point out that it's the director's cut rather than the theatrical cut is the director's cut is longer.
Hmm.
It has a whole side story with Coolio playing a character who was falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit. And, so he's on trial, and, Matt's sticking up for him because, Matt sticks up for the little guy, the underdog. And I really feel like it just fleshed out the movie a little bit more and made
Absolutely.
more of a balance between Matt Murdock and Daredevil.
Right. Yeah, I feel like this. A lot of people blame Ben, and I'm not. Other than as Batman and in the director's cut, I'm not a big Ben Affleck fan, but I do think he's a great Batman.
See, I
But
thought it was okay.
I like, to me, he was like, if you, that was what, to me, that's what like a no fucks given Frank Miller Batman would be how Ben Affleck
Well,
played
yeah,
him.
yeah, okay. I can see that. I can see that.
Um, but again, a lot of people blame. And while I'm not the biggest Ben Affleck fan, I know a lot of people blame him for the theatrical cut of Daredevil not being very good. And I always say blaming Ben Affleck for that is like blaming the interior decorator for the Titanic being destroyed. Like,
Yeah,
that, like it not gonna. He did the best he could with what he had. Now,
exactly.
in
And so
my
did so did
opinion,
Jennifer
because
Garner, because a lot of people bust her for her portrayal of Elektra, but I'm like, she did what she could, like you said, she did what she could with what she had,
that's,
and
yeah, that's
unfortunately,
the
she really didn't have a whole lot.
well.
I don't feel like.
That's kind of one of those, like, I don't feel like she, even because she even got her own movie, and I didn't really care for that one too
Exactly.
much. So I
Yeah,
like
I
Jennifer
actually
Garner.
never saw that one.
I don't like. Nah, I mean, you're free to watch it. I don't want to just. One of my big pet peeves in fandom is me going, "Oh, hey, I don't like it. Oh, I hate it too." So I mean, I encourage you to watch it for yourself and form your own opinion. My personal opinion is I don't like it.
Yeah. I never had a chance to pick it up, and I don't know, maybe just like I said, I wasn't really wowed by the character in the first movie, so I was just like, I can take it or leave it, and I left it, and then I just never had a chance to watch it, but
Right.
or. just completely forgot about it. Honestly,
Yeah. I
it
mean,
could go
there's
either
certain
way.
yeah, I just mentioned Ben Affleck making a Frank Miller character version of a character do well. This was not well, in my opinion.
No.
Again, I emphasize in my opinion before anybody comes after me.
Hmm. Well, and I have to say, I felt like the editing was really choppy
In the first one, absolutely. The theatrical
because
release, yeah,
yeah, in the theatrical release, it was just the editing is so choppy because they cut out so much stuff.
right.
And when they put that back in for the director's cut, it just went a little bit smoother.
We're kind of trying
It
to
just
date.
seemed to flow. It had more of a flow to it than just being like, I don't know, just kind of bounced around all over the place.
We were kind of dating ourselves a little bit with this next comment, but it's like it seems like anything, a lot of stuff with Ben Affleck in it as a superhero seems to always be better in the director's cut. Go figure. We have the Justice League, the Snyder cut, and the director's cut with
That's
Daredevil.
the one
So
that's 4 hour. The Snyder Cut's the one that's like 4 hours long, isn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet either. I
uh,
need to, but
it's just it's just long, but like it's definitely. And I didn't even hate what they put in theaters, but this is like a billion times better.
well, actually, I fell asleep about halfway through. Just
It,
the regular theatrical Justice League.
it,
I fell asleep halfway through it.
it
To
was
be honest,
it wasn't good, but I mean I still don't think it was as bad as everybody says it was. That's just
I
kind of
just
like
was really tired that day, and
yeah,
I couldn't stay up. It just wasn't catching my interest enough, and
it was
I
it.
fell asleep.
I liked it better than X3 and Spider-Man 3, and
Well, that's true.
I mean I know that's not like a high bar, but I mean it's better in my
Yeah.
opinion. But
Yeah,
that's
the X-Men movies never really found their footing. I feel like of all the X-Men movies, Logan would have been the best one.
Logan's probably
Logan was amazing.
there's one and
It
one
didn't
A.
make my list. I guess I could put Logan on an honorable mention since I didn't bring it up on my list to begin
Well,
with,
well,
but
well, well, like
I
Logan
really
to
did
me is
like it.
like one and one A. Logan and Dark Knight as far as the best of all time. That's just me though.
Mhm. Well,
Um.
we'll get to Dark Knight. That's on the
Oh yeah,
list
we'll get
too.
to Dark Knight. So, what would number four be on your list?
All right, so I did flip flop a little bit. So number four would be Hellboy,
Okay.
the first one. Just because I've always enjoyed the Hellboy comics. I really like Mike Mignola's art style. I love
Hmm.
Guillermo del Toro, and I love the look of the film. And Ron Perlman was Hellboy. I
Absolutely.
mean, he was phenomenal. I love Doug Jones, and he did a fantastic job. Selma Blair, I actually I'd seen her in a couple of things, and yeah, I was like, yeah, okay, I can take her or leave her, but she did such a great job. So I really liked that. The visuals were absolutely stunning. I loved the story. I felt like it was a pretty solid story. I liked the little cameo of Mike and Guillermo. They have a cameo in there, so that was kind of cute because I was
Yeah.
sitting in the theater. I was sitting in the theater watching. I was like, "That's Guillermo and that's Mike." They were just up on the screen. Kind of like what's so another kind of go off the side. I can't believe I didn't put Deadpool on the list. But we were watching Deadpool because Deadpool I love Deadpool as well. So maybe I'll throw that in an honorable mention as well. But we were watching Deadpool and the second one. Sorry, we were watching Deadpool 2, and he makes a snide comment about being drawn by an artist who can't draw feet, and I just
Yeah.
lost it.
Yeah. Right. I love that line. I know a lot of the
And
people that don't, kind of aren't
nobody
in the.
got it.
Yeah, people who aren't
I was literally the only person in the theater laughing.
like
And I'm
it's.
like, they just totally busted Liefeld's balls, and nobody got it but me. And
But
I'm
see,
like,
like I,
that
I'm
sucks.
not trying to be like I'm an elitist comic book fan or anything like that, but like to me that was kind of one of those you're rewarded for liking comic books. A lot of
Yeah,
a
they threw
lot
it in there
of
for the fans.
a lot of these movies, and I'm not knocking any of them, but a lot of them kind of they kind of, I want to say they want to look down on you if you're a fan of the source material, but a lot of times they're just kind of like, well, we're not going to do it that way, and just, let me cry on your fanboy slash girl tears because we're trying to
Hmm.
market a movie. Who cares what you
Right.
think?
That has a broad appeal to a lot of
Yeah,
people, and if you get too niche with it, then you're just not going to get anybody in the theater.
right. But I mean, but I also feel like, sometimes they go completely in the screw you if you like comic books direction in some movies, whereas this, like Deadpool, they have the broad appeal, but they'll like work in things like that. They'll leave the average person going, "Wait, what?" And then,
Hmm.
like for all of us that read comic books, like that's that. That's our guy. That's us. That was for us. That wasn't for
Well,
you. You get a lot of
and
other
I
stuff. This one's for us.
right, and well, and then in the first Deadpool, like when he walks by that guy in the bar and like smacks him, he's like, fuck Liefeld, and I'm like, they totally threw that in there, because most people aren't going to know.
Right.
So anyway, but going back to which one were we on?
We were on Hellboy.
Hellboy. Yeah, so going back to Hellboy. But I feel like there really was some good fan service in
Right.
Hellboy as well. I think they did a really good job kind of meshing Mignola's vision with Guillermo's vision. And I love everything that I've ever seen, and I think I've seen almost everything that Guillermo del Toro has done, even the stuff that he has in Spanish. Um, I just absolutely love everything he's done, especially when he gets to go into that fantasy world that he has kind of created. There's actually a really good book. My husband bought it for me for my birthday. It's called Cabinet of Curiosities, and it's basically this beautiful hardcover book all about Guillermo, and like it takes you through his house even, and you can just see like by the way his house is decorated, like that's his world. That's where his headspace is. So he's not, I mean, yeah, granted, he has Pacific Rim and stuff like that, where, he kind of steps outside that. But then you get stuff like The Shape of Water, you get stuff like Hellboy, you get stuff like The Devil's Backbone. And that is his darker, or Pan's Labyrinth is probably my all time favorite movie. And of course, not comic book movie, but
Right.
I adore that movie. And you get into that fantasy inside of his head, like he's letting you in there to see all the neat just machinations that's going on in there.
Right.
And I really really like that about those movies where he gets to explore his world. And he even, on as far as Pan's Labyrinth, he went on record at one point saying that he did the translation for that himself
Oh,
because one of
really?
his other movies, yeah, one of his other movies got translated from Spanish to English, and he didn't like the translation. He didn't. They're like, you didn't use the words that I wanted you to use. You didn't invoke that feeling that I wanted. So now, if he does a movie in Spanish, he does the English translations himself because he doesn't want to turn it over to somebody else. He wants to make sure that the audience is hearing, his voice and his words. And I like that about him too because, that shows that he really put so much heart and soul into his films. So, and you can feel that. And I feel like, you could tell because the second movie I just didn't feel was as good.
Right. They're just.
Hellboy 2, and then the David Harbour one. No.
Yeah. No.
I mean, he did,
Yeah.
again,
I'm not
doing
gonna.
the best he
Yeah.
can,
I'm not gonna say
but
he's a
I
bad
just didn't like the
actor. He didn't
story.
try and do the. He didn't try and do a good job. But it's just kind of like
He just didn't have that same
he just
feeling.
wasn't Ron Perlman. That was just kind of the
Right,
issue.
exactly.
You
And
know.
to
And
me, Ron Perlman was Hellboy.
and then again, it's fine to have that opinion, but it's also you walk a kind of a fine line with that because I feel like there's so many people that are just like, well, I don't want to like Ben Affleck Batman because he's not Christian Bale, or I don't want to like Christian Bale because he's not Michael Keaton, or I don't want to like
Yeah,
whoever because they're not whatever. So I try not to do that with my or at least I try to have like an open mind when it comes to like a newer actor. It's like, okay, let's give it a shot, but
yeah,
sometimes the actor change doesn't work, and
yeah. I
that
felt
time
like
it
with
didn't
that one,
work.
but I mean, again, I also know that Ron's, went on record as saying that, he was too old to play the character anymore. So
Right.
that was why they, gave it to somebody else for the third movie. Um, but my favorite story from Hellboy and that universe, I guess, was I volunteer also at a charity here in, because I live in Florida, near the Disney parks and everything. And there's a resort here that is called Give Kids the World. And that's where, when a kid gets a wish, if they have a terminal or life threatening illness, and they're contacted by a wish granting organization, that's where they come to stay when they go on their Disney vacation. If their wish is to go to Disney, then that's where they go. So I'm, really touched by people that do anything above and beyond for a Make a Wish kid.
Right.
In fact, well, an aside on that, did you know my dad, George Perez, he's my adopted dad, he was the subject of a Make a Wish once. There was
Awesome.
a kid, there was a little boy that was his wish was to meet George, so he did it. And so, but anyway, so the little boy in this story wanted to meet Hellboy. He didn't want to meet Ron. He wanted to meet Hellboy. And Ron went out and went through the 6 hours of hair and makeup and everything they had to do to make him into Hellboy, and sat with that little kid for hours,
That's awesome. I
as
remember
Hellboy.
reading about that story. That's still pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, so he did, and he stayed in character the whole time, and just, I thought that, anybody that's going to go above and beyond for a Wish kid, that they get points in my book.
Oh hell yeah.
So, like you're talking about, you're going to a wrestling convention. I know two wrestlers, well, three if you count Hulk Hogan, because that was the '80s big guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, John Cena and The Rock. And the only reason I really know who the two of them are is because they are very, very involved with Make a Wish, and I
Right.
just think that's really awesome that they use their celebrity for that. So,
Oh yeah, especially
um,
Cena. He's made a bunch of
mhm.
Make a Wish, like ran a bunch of way. Like
Oh
he got
yeah,
honored for that. Like he did like a record one
hmm,
year. But
yep.
yeah, that's
So I say, I just, like I said, just with that one, it's just the I feel like Mignola's vision was truly recognized through what Guillermo did.
okay.
So I think
So
that would be, so that would be
that's number
that
four.
one's my number four.
So we
So
got to go number three.
number three is going to be a newer one, Into the Spider Verse.
Okay, yeah, because the without question, again, my opinion, best theatrical Spider-Man release ever.
Yeah,
Every live
I would
action
say that.
Spider-Man movie always missed the mark on something. Like there was always one like these few parts were good, but then this part was bad, or these few
But I
parts were
gotta
good,
say,
but this one kind of hit everything and did everything well.
yeah, and I gotta say, I really like Tom Holland as Spider Man. He's been my favorite one so far. Like, I like the genuineness that he
I
brings to
like
the
Tom Holland.
character.
I hate everything else about those movies. Those to me, here's where I'm going to get the director hatred on Twitter at athletic_geek89 with all of your you're an idiot for not liking this. How dare you?
Hmm.
I think the MCU Spider-Mans are garbage.
Yeah,
Complete. Like Tom Holland's great. I'm not knocking his ability, but like everything else they do with that is just complete trash
I liked.
that coasts on the Marvel Cinematic Universe name. The
I feel like they're kind of going. They're like trying to get into like the villains that nobody really knows.
it's not
And
even that. It's just kind of like there's the villains. Okay, you don't know the villains, but again, I understand that you can't do everything for a comic fan, but like those are just like,
they're just crappy villains.
well, they're no, I mean like they can be good villains if you do them right. They just choose not to. Those are the movies where they completely go, oh, you like the source material? Well, screw you, buddy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you know
I can
we
see that.
we have a casual audience that we want to hit, and we don't give a fuck about all you dumb fanboys and fangirls that like Spider-Man. Sit down,
Hmm.
shut up. We have $1 billion. That's the vibe I get
Right.
from those movies, with the exception of how good Tom Holland is. So
Yeah.
again, you can
I
direct
know.
all your hatred to that on Twitter. After you don't do it at her, do it at me. I'm the one that said it all.
Right. Well, like I said, I just feel like they were just popcorn movies. Like they weren't necessarily good or bad. They just were there to make money.
Yeah, they were there to fill
Give you
space for
some
the
eye candy for a couple hours, but not really. There's no substance really to them.
right. And to me, like, just the thing is, like, it's not street level enough. When I like Spider-Man, I like Spider-Man kind of on the streets, and
Mm-hmm.
he's dealing with apocalyptic shield stuff, and it's like that's not Spider-Man to me. Like, that's Iron Man. That's you know, but that's not. That's Captain America. That's not what Spider-Man does. Spider-Man's stopping the burglar and climbing the Empire State Building to stop the Scorpion. That's Spider-Man to me.
Right. But I
But
liked,
but on
like
the
I said,
flip
I really,
side, Into the Spider Verse does all of that right, every single
exactly.
way,
That's what I was getting ready to
top to
say.
bottom,
Yep.
and everything they
And it
do
was
is
nice to
good for
see.
comic fans. But they don't. But they prove that you can do a comic book movie like the comic books and still make it good for the overall audience.
Mhm. I liked seeing Miles Morales. I liked just the feel of the movie. I like the little thing where every now and again, the colors would be just slightly off. Like the old comic books where they didn't quite line up sometimes, and there'd be like
Right.
a little bit outside. I like that they threw that in there. That was a fun little nod. Like the first time I saw that, I was like, what? And then I'm like, oh, they're using this as, a device in the film. Like it's intentional. And I also like too with that one the extended cut that has all the things that they either didn't finish animating or they decided to cut out from the film. So like if they didn't animate it, they would put in the storyboards. So you still got the whole story that they wanted. I don't feel that they took out anything that they didn't need to. Like we talked about with Daredevil, how the stuff with Coolio getting cut out changed the whole movie.
Right.
Whereas with this, the stuff they cut out, I mean, you can watch it with or without.
Right. Right.
But it's neat to have seen like the full vision instead of just the theatrical.
I just like it
The
because
theatrical cut stands up on its own.
it makes me relate to Peter Parker even more. The fact that he got depressed and out of shape because that's my life.
Yeah, exactly. Well, nothing I can do about that, but
Yeah.
it made him more human, and that's what I liked about it. And then, of course, having Spider Gwen in there was a lot of fun.
My
Um,
only real gripe is
I
they
felt
didn't
like they
go
did
into
King, they
an
did Kingpin really well.
yeah. My only real gripe at that movie is we didn't divulge enough into Spider Gwen. Like she was like a good character, but like there's like so many things. It's like they could have done 5 more minutes exploring her, and she would have been like that much more fleshed out.
Hmm.
That's my only real gripe. That's my only gripe with the movie. Period.
Yeah, I can see that. But I just feel like I said overall, it was really good. It was really solid. It stayed true to the books while still being something that everybody could enjoy. Like you don't have to know everything about Spider-Man. You don't have to know everything about Miles Morales, but you can
Right.
still sit and watch that movie and get enough out of it that you understand that character.
Absolutely.
It's not somebody you have to have grown up on. It's somebody that you can get introduced to and learn about. And I just feel like they did a really, really good job with that. And so I was really, really happy with Into the Spider Verse. So all the way around, I thought that one was great. All right, so now we're on number
Number
two.
two.
You know, hmm, because I have two more movies left, and now that I'm thinking about it, I can't decide which one I want to be my number one. So we'll go. You know what? I'll go ahead and let's do Avengers for number two,
Okay.
the very first one, because I feel like that was really what put the MCU like just on that rocket ship that it was on. Just
Okay.
how they go from yeah, Iron Man did really well, Captain America did really well, but then you had Avengers and you got the team together for the first time. And I know we found out within the last year that, Joss is kind of a jerk, not a great guy to work with, but I gotta say, the man can write a good story,
Right. Yeah.
and it was, there wasn't too much time given to any one character. There wasn't anybody that I felt was lacking. And the fact that he was able to introduce that many characters, that many backstories, and have you walk away from that movie feeling like you know that team.
Hmm.
even if you have never picked up a comic book in your life,
Right.
and even if you hadn't seen obviously having seen the previous movies going up to it, you're going to understand it more. But you could walk into Avengers having not seen Captain America or Iron Man or any of those and still be like, yeah, okay, I
Right.
get why these guys are a team. I get why there's that little bit of strife, and they set that up early on, knowing that they're going to do Civil War later on. They kind of already put Iron Man and Captain America kind of button heads a little bit and disagreeing on things, kind of like setting that framework for, yeah, there's going to be times that they're not all going to get along,
Right.
but they're still going to have to, when shit hits the fan, they're going to get together and they're going to have each other's backs, no matter what.
Right.
I mean, at least until Civil War, but then they got that worked out. But I just feel like Avengers really put the comic book movie into prominence.
You
Because
think it was Avengers and not Dark Knight?
see, that's a tough call because Dark Knight's my number one.
Right. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler. Um, yeah. So yeah, that's actually kind of a tough call because everything about really to me the Joker. And man, again, getting your balls busted because as soon as I heard it was Heath Ledger, I was like, yes, he is gonna nail it. And so I was a Heath Ledger fan from the very first time I saw him too.
See,
I
I never, he never did anything that interested me up to that point. So I'm just like,
ah,
that's, I never did any, I mean, like, I didn't have like a boo sort of thing. I'm just like, okay, cool. Let's see it happen, you know?
but I knew he is one of those character actors. I said he is gonna bring something to this character that nobody's ever thought of, and he's gonna change this character. Because I feel like Jack Nicholson, when he played the Joker in the original Batman, the Keaton one, Michael. I was gonna say
Right.
Tom. Where's Tom coming? Because we're talking about Tom Holland. Michael Keaton
Well, Tom Holland did act with Michael
version.
Keaton. That's the only other
Yeah,
thing. That's the only other
right,
thing I've liked from a MCU Spider-Man movie. I will give that.
right.
I will give more credit there. But go on.
But he just he just played him more. I just knew that Heath was gonna go darker, and he was gonna explore like Killing Joke Joker, not Caesar Romero Joker. Like he was gonna take it seriously
Right.
and not just, sitting there painting on things while doing this dumb smile to a Prince song. Like I knew he was gonna take it and make it into something that people weren't gonna expect. And it was so funny because my husband and I, the first time we saw the movie, um, I was telling him, I'm like, we're gonna watch this movie more than once. I know it's gonna be that good. And he's like, no, see it once in the theater. We'll get it on DVD or whatever. And I'm like, nope, we're seeing it at least twice in the theater. And it wasn't until it was right when he does the want to see a magic trick and slams that guy's head, into the pencil. My husband turns to me, he's like, oh, yeah, we're seeing this again. I'm like, told you. But yeah, so I think, like I said, and obviously we lost Heath too soon. And
Right.
did that particular role have anything to do with it? Because they did say, he got himself into a pretty dark place because he wanted to be, as honest and gritty of a Joker as he could, maybe. We don't know what was going on in his head. Um, Obviously, he was hurting, and I've had insomnia. I've been awake for a week once, and I started hallucinating. And lack of sleep will mess with your head, and
Right.
you'll do anything to get to sleep. And it sounded like that's what happened was that's why he had all those drugs in his system because he was trying to get anything to turn his brain off long enough to sleep. And I've been there, and it's not a fun place to be. So, but and for me, I mean, Christian Bale, was he the best Batman? I don't know. Was he the worst Batman? No, I don't think so.
He was my
But
favorite Bruce. He was my
he
favorite
was a
Bruce.
good Bruce.
where he really played up the whole like I'm gonna really be as obnoxious as I can,
Mm-hmm.
to make throw people off the scent. But
Right.
I just I don't like him sounding like Batman sounding like Cookie Monster choking on a cigar.
Yeah. And see, and the thing is, I
Especially
kind of
when Kevin
like
Conroy proved you can change the voice without sounding like Cookie Monster choking on a cigar.
that's true. But I could say, I mean, as much as people crap on Batman and Robin, I have to say I really did enjoy George Clooney as Bruce in that movie. He was a cheesy Batman, but he just seemed very caring. Like the way he took care of
Uh,
Alfred and everything that went on. I did enjoy his performance as Bruce, but I can see where you would say Christian would be a better
I
Bruce.
see what you're saying, but I'm just going to respectfully disagree with you there.
That's fine. Like I said, I get a lot of flack for a lot of the stuff that I like, so I'm used to
Oh,
it
I'm
because
not
I
gonna.
like I'm
I'm
I
not
like
coming
weird
after you.
stuff.
I'm just saying I kind of, other than Alfred, and a couple good scenes, I got nothing for that movie.
Yeah. Although I will say I really did of what I do remember from Justice League before I fell asleep. I liked the casting of Jeremy Irons as Alfred. I thought he did
Yeah,
a really good job.
yeah. Um, I don't think there's really
I
been
mean,
a
not that
bad.
Michael Caine doesn't.
But
Michael
see,
Caine
there's never been
does
to me
great.
really a bad Alfred. I think everybody's done Alfred very, very well in every
Hmm.
incarnation. Um, but yeah, um,
But I also really like him too. So,
right.
um, but yeah. So like I said, going back to Avengers because we kind of jumped ahead to the number one. Going back to Avengers, but like I said, I think it also one of the things that it did was prove that it's not just comics are for kids. Like, Iron Man is, running around in the desert, blowing stuff up, he does it, but it gets, like I say, kind of both do, but they're so different because Avengers is, light and airy, and, you have this trickster who is the villain, so, you can't help but love the guy because he's just so charmingly evil. Because, of course, I absolutely adore Tom Hiddleston, go figure. Um, and I
We
thought
talked at
his
low key quite at quite a bit of length in our original interview as well.
we
So
did because he's
so
he's
go
one of my
check that out.
favorites.
Go check that out to hear more of hear more about Loki.
Right. And I'm looking forward to the TV show like nobody's business. Although I really am enjoying Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's only been 2 episodes in, but I've enjoyed both of them quite a
Haven't
bit.
seen it yet.
But I'm really looking forward to Loki. I think it's going to be fun to see what he can do. And I was really happy with WandaVision too. So it's like everything that the TV stuff that's come out so far has been really good. So I feel like it's just going to keep getting better. Um, but Avengers showed, like that was a team movie, so you kind of felt that, elbowing each other and playing around and all that. Whereas The Dark Knight presented, that darker side of comics, where even with, like, I guess that one too would even say, like, comics aren't always for kids,
Right.
you know. And then I even remember I got really mad in the theater. I actually spoke up to the dad. There was a dad with his son, and the son couldn't have been more than like maybe 4 or 5. And when they did the very first reveal of Two Face, he screamed and started crying. The dad like smacks him and says, "Stop it! It's just a movie." I'm like, he's not really old enough to understand the difference between fantasy and reality, and he's seeing this thing on the screen that's scaring him. You don't smack your kid and tell him to shut up. That shows some understanding of this kid, right?
Right.
So that didn't make me very happy when that happened in the theater. Um, but it just, as I said, Dark Knight, like, just it exceeded my expectations with what I was going into it for. Which is funny because usually, like, when there's trilogies like that, the middle movie is the one that kind of drags, because they have to get from point A to point C because you have like A, B, and
Okay.
C. So
That's very
B just kind of drags a little
that's
bit.
very
This
interesting
one
you
was
say
the
that because
standout.
I completely disagree. To me, it's always been, at least in the comic book world, it's always been number two's been the best. Dark Knight X2, Spider-Man 2. Like those have always to me been the best one. It was always with the
Hmm.
it's always been number three has kind of been where it's like, and even I'm not knocking Dark Knight Rise. I thought it was good. I just thought it was a little bit of a step down from Dark Knight.
Oh
To
yeah,
me, it was like, but
absolutely.
like X3 and Spider-Man 3 are like where like all of them been a step down. It was just Dark Knight Rises was a step, and X2 or X3 and Spider-Man 3 were like they tumbled down the hill.
No, that yeah, I just feel like The Dark Knight Rises. I mean, it could have been better, and it kind of fizzled out to me at the end. It was just kind of like I felt like they were just trying to tie up the loose ends really quick because the movie had already run so long,
Right.
and because it is, I think, the longest of them, and it ran so long, and then they were, like I said, they're just like, okay, we got to finish this up, we got to finish this up, and they just threw that ending on there and bye. Like it felt kind of forced towards the end, and that's why I feel like. But The Dark Knight, from start to finish, is just, you're kind of on the edge of your seat. Like, what is this guy gonna do next with Joker anyway? It's like, what else is he gonna do? And he just, oh god, he was so good in that role. So that would be my number one. We jumped ahead on that.
Oh, that's totally cool.
So,
Um, so you got a couple
but
honorable
it's kind
mentions,
of hard. Yeah, but it's kind of hard because, like I said, I love them both, but for completely different reasons.
right? And that's kind of, I think that's just kind of a lot of movies. Like my top two are interchangeable for that exact reason. And it's yeah. I mean, that's just kind of. I think that's kind of when you get to the very very top of your list, you always have kind of that issue of like, well, I like this, but I also like this, but this one's good, and this one did what that number one couldn't, but number one was this, so you always
Right.
kind of run into that.
Okay, so honorable mentions. Let me get my paper. So you'll notice I did move one of them. I flip flopped because I had Hellboy originally as an honorable mention, but then the more I was thinking about it, I'm like, no, I got to put Hellboy in the top five just because of Guillermo del Toro. It's got to be in my top five. So I moved down. Um, this is the one a lot of people don't necessarily think of as a comic book movie, and you don't find out that it's a comic book movie until like the spin at the end, and that is Unbreakable
Okay.
with Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson. And M Night, like, he comes out, he bursts out with the Sixth Sense, which, everybody was like, oh, that's surprise ending at the end. He was dead the whole time. You know, yeah, that was cool. But then, it kind of became a joke after a while because
Right.
everything had to have that big twist at the end. And sometimes it worked out and sometimes it was just ridiculous. But this one with Unbreakable, like the twist at the end is when you realize it's like, yeah, this actually is a comic book movie. It's not based on a comic book, and maybe they made one after. I don't know. I didn't really keep up with it, but it's this, standard tale of good versus bad, the good guy versus the bad guy, and the good guy wanting to do as much good as he can, and the bad guy wanting to cause as much trouble as he can. And hurt as many people as he can because he hurts himself and he wants other people to feel like that. And that's kind of like there's that meme that goes around that says there's two kinds of people in the world. There's the people that say, well, I had to go through, I suffered and lived through it, so you can too. And then there's the other people that say, no, I had to deal with that. I suffered with that. And that's why I care and don't want other people to.
Right.
Like, kind of like we talk about with chronic illnesses, of which I have lupus. My best day could be somebody else's awful.
Right.
Because I'm always tired. Something is always in pain. I'm always tired. I have a lot of stomach problems, but I've learned to live with it. But I wouldn't want anybody else to live through this. And that's kind of like, so that's where you get that dichotomy between the two main characters is, the good guy's going out there and trying to help everybody, but then the bad guy, Mr. Glass, is wanting to hurt people the way he's been hurt.
Right.
And so that's and that's where, when he does the big twist at the end, where it's like, basically telling him, hey, we are living in a comic book. You're I'm your villain, and they realize that. So even like I said, it's not based on a comic book. It has the feel
Hmm.
of a comic as you're going through. So I put that on there as an honorable mention. And then my next one is Watchmen. I know Watchmen didn't do too great. It's widely renowned as one of the best comic books ever written,
Right.
but somehow the movie just fell flat.
I don't
It
think
just
people.
didn't.
I don't think the audience at large was ready for something like that.
I don't think so either, because it's one of those things, and the only thing was like the ending, obviously, because they didn't have the big monster and all that. But it just, I, like, yeah, exactly. I don't think people were ready. Like it was. It's just such a strange out there.
Right.
Because I mean, Alan Moore,
Yeah.
he's strange and out there. So of course he's gonna write things like that. Um, but it was they're a team, but they're not. And Rorschach's all over the place, and Silk Spectre. Like, what do you think about her? Yeah, it was really, really just kind of bounced around a little bit.
Right.
But I, again, it's one of those. It's like I liked the visual tone. I feel like it really did pay a lot of attention to the tone of the comic book itself. Um, but it just, some people absolutely love Watchmen. Other people don't like it, but at least can acknowledge, wow, this was a really groundbreaking book. It wasn't for
Right.
me. It, I'm
Right.
not saying I like it. I'm liking, but I'm saying if somebody doesn't like Watchmen, they can say, well, I didn't like it, but I understand it was groundbreaking for its time.
Right.
And it really kind of pushed the industry forward a little bit and put something out there that nobody had ever really seen before. And I feel like that's what they were trying to do with the movie, but they just went a little bit too far, and people were just like,
Hmm.
I don't know about that, So,
It's one of those. You definitely got to be in the right headspace before you watch a movie like that. Like it's
yeah,
not a. It
absolutely.
is not a throw that one in and watch it kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's not like, we talked about the Spider-Man movies just being popcorn movies. There's just no substance to them. You
Right.
just go and watch it and have a good time. You got to really be ready to sit down and take it in and think about it.
Right.
It's not just a, summer blockbuster type of thing.
Exactly.
So, I am going to throw one in
Go ahead.
that I didn't put on my list, and I can't believe I didn't. The original, the first Wonder Woman movie, because my dad gets a huge credit at the end, and it's actually based on one of his books. It's based on Gods and Mortals
Okay.
that he did. He wrote and did the art for both. So I like that it's based on one of his uh, stories. Um, and then, of course, he's getting credit for Doom Patrol because of Cyborg. They have the Titans TV show that has his characters in it. Um, oh goodness, what else? He's credited for Avengers. He's gotten credited in a lot of the MCU movies. But I can't believe I didn't put Wonder Woman on there. And it really was, you know, everybody was like, "Oh, you're not ready for a movie that with a female lead, character." And Marvel's like, "Hey, here's a talking raccoon and a tree. You guys are ready for everything." So, so when they did finally do it, I feel like they did the character pretty good justice.
Hmm.
Um, I liked that it was directed by a female as well. I feel like that gave it more of an authentic feel. I don't know that it would have been as believable had it been directed by a man. Even though, like I said, George was the one that kind of brought her back into prominence and
Right.
rewrote a lot of her story, I feel like having a woman do a take on it. And Patty Jenkins is lovely. She came to MegaCon. We did after the Pulse shooting, which unfortunately, as you recall, 43 men and women were killed at Pulse. And to raise money to help the families, we did a fundraiser at MegaCon, and we put together a book called Love is Love. Or say they put together a book called Love is Love, and it's just a bunch of there's one story for each of the ones that we lost, or at least like an art page. Like David Mack, for example, did a portrait of Amanda Alvarez. Some of them are just stories that are told in memory of someone. Some of them are stories about the people that were killed. But there's a story for each person. And so, of course, all the funds from that book. Now, that was the book was available nationwide, but the reception that we had, and Patty was the one that helped edit the book and get it all put together. And so
That's awesome.
she came out to be a part of the reception that we had, and pretty much any of the artists that had done work in the book were welcome to come. So it was like for comic book fans, it was star studded, you know. And it was the only time that George came out to MegaCon, so that was the only way you could meet him is if you went to this reception. And yeah, just almost I mean, anybody that was at MegaCon that had something to do with the book had made the time to come to this reception, and it was a lot of fun. But anyway, so Patty, like I said, I'd met her prior to her directing the movie, just the one time, and like, I can't say, oh, we were friends. It's like, yeah, we had like a 15-minute conversation,
Right.
as part of this
But you
event.
still got to talk
But
to her, which is pretty awesome.
yeah, and so when I heard her name attached to it, I'm like, oh, I think she's going to do all right because she did a really good job with this book that I actually have it on the floor next to me because I was reading it. I read it every year around about the time of the anniversary, so it's coming up in 2 months, 3 months because it's June. Um, yeah, and it was a really nice event. I gotta I'll throw a shout out to Constance Isa. She works for Fan Expo because Fan Expo bought out MegaCon. So I think she volunteered with MegaCon when it was owned uh, privately, but now it's run by Fan Expo, so she works for Fan Expo now. But Constance was the one that actually got the idea to do this and put most of it together and got as many of the people there as were there. So that was, I gotta give her a lot of credit. She did a lot of hard work on that. So, but anyway, so Wonder Woman, again, like I said, just because it's based on a story that my dad wrote. And I'll end it, and again, people bust my balls, but I liked Superman Returns. I am going to give that one an honorable mention. I liked Superman Returns.
Um,
I just
you,
did.
but say, do you care to elaborate why? Because I mean, I'm not.
I know a lot of people didn't like it, but
I like
I
Brandon
thought,
Routh, and that's about
yeah,
where it
like
ends.
I
I
thought
liked
he
him better
did
as
a really good job.
I liked him better as the Atom on the TV universe than Superman. But like,
Hmm.
I enjoyed Brandon Routh, and that's about unfortunately the where my from my perspective, that's about where my compliments to that movie have to end. But I mean, just
I
everybody's
just
entitled to their own opinion.
I liked the one scene in particular that really stands out to me. So he gets stabbed with the kryptonite, and he's sick, he's sick. Lois figures out what's going on, yanks it out of him, and he gets himself up and flies up into the sun, up above the clouds to where he could get into the sun and recharge his powers. And I just thought that was a really powerful scene, and I thought it was really well directed and very, very just beautiful. I thought it just such a beautiful scene. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not basing the entire movie on one scene,
Right,
but I also kind of like the idea that they got into of like Superman having a kid.
right.
Like,
Well, they're doing
you
that in the
know,
comic books now, so that even gets
yeah. So
I mean, I guess you can say it was influential in that sense, but I'm just
exactly. And
yeah,
at the time, before we knew that Kevin Spacey was a sleazeball, I liked Kevin Spacey, and I feel like he had a lot of fun, playing Lex Luthor.
right.
So like I said, now we know he's a scuzzball, but at the time, that was however many years ago, we didn't know that back then. So it was just like
Right.
you could enjoy it. And it sucks. It really does suck that that can influence the way you feel. But it's like, hey, it's just like Tom Cruise, knowing that Tom Cruise is an asshole, I can't enjoy his movies. It's
Right.
like, you little a-hole, It's like, get off your lift shoes. Just suck it up that you're tiny and deal with it. Quit being like that. I mean, he's just I don't know. He just doesn't rub me right, so I can't enjoy his movies. And I was never really into Mission Impossible to begin with, so I don't really like any of those movies anyway.
The only Tom Cruise movie I liked was Days of Thunder, so we're good.
I gotta say I was a Top Gun fan,
I like
but that was because
NASCAR,
of
so that's why I
Goose.
like Days of Thunder.
Yeah.
So, and Michael Rooker was in
Uh,
it too, so that's also cool.
yeah, I remember after that movie came out, the Days of Thunder movie, they actually opened a simulator at Kings Island, which just recently closed, like for good. They had to close Kings Island. It's just not there anymore. But they had a simulator that was based on Days of Thunder, and it was like at the time it was the biggest simulator that had ever been built. And so yeah, so you're sitting in the chair and you're getting moved back and forth and forwards and back as the drivers driving around the track. It was. I remember riding that and having a lot of
Awesome.
fun with it. But anyway, so I think that's
That's
my
pretty much it.
list, and I
So,
added one
yeah,
so
that's.
to kind
Is
of
there
flesh it out a little bit.
any more you want to
So
add before we tell everyone goodbye?
yeah, I think that's pretty much all of my.
Okay,
Like you say, if we're doing a top five, those would probably be the top five, at least
gotcha.
in that particular genre. So
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I know last time you mentioned you've had some part still working with Heroes Initiative. Is that still going on even with the
um,
pandemic?
well, not really, just because of COVID, and but you can always, if you want to find out more about it, you can go to heroinitiative.org. You can donate. If you have listeners in California, Ralph's helps us out a lot. They have a loyalty card, and Hero Initiative gets a little kickback from that. If you use Amazon Smile, you can choose Hero Initiative. We'll get a little kickback from your Amazon purchases when you use that. And basically, we are the only federally recognized nonprofit that raises money to help comic creators in need, mainly Gold and Silver Age, but newer guys too, if they need help. Um, we've done everything from fill a gas tank in the winter so that they didn't have to choose between heat and food. We've helped pay for funerals. We've helped pay for medical treatments. We worked together with Marvel to get the Guardians of the Galaxy movies shown for Bill Mantlo, who was the creator of Rocket Raccoon, because he's in assisted living, so that he can't go out to the theater. So we brought the movie to him and
That's
all of his
awesome.
friends at the place where he works. So just little things to try to give back to the people that gave us the heroes that we believe in.
Absolutely, and definitely check that out. There'll be a link to the website in the description box below.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Encourage you to donate. And if you enjoyed this, please give it a like, share, subscribe for more content, not just from the world of superheroes and comic books, but from the world of pro wrestling, gaming, anime, and all things geek culture. And follow me on my social media pages, or after some of the things I said on here, direct your hate speech to facebook.com/athleticgeeka9, Twitter athletic_geeka9, Instagram athleticgeeka9, and I feel weird asking for this with Tabitha just promoting a charity, but I am on Patreon if you'd like to help improve this channel financially. Patreon.com/athleticgeeka9. Till then, we'll see you guys next time.
All right. Thanks for having me on.